Democrats have lost a lot of ground in Texas because nobody's happy with them. But now you have Texas Monthly talking about Zepeda County, Starr County, which is just upriver from McAllen. Texas Monthly says Republicans increased their turnout by 300% in the last 4 years. This is a county that Hillary Clinton won by 60 points. Joe Biden barely eked out a 5-point victory in Starr County. Webb County, home of Laredo, Trump cut his 2016 margin of defeat by more than half. In Zepeda, I did not realize that county did not have a local Republican party. He was the first Republican candidate Trump was to win since Warren G. Harding was on the ballot a century ago. Well, they've been further watching this deluge of Hispanic support for limited government issues and away from the big government Democrat Party. And I think this was because Democrats assume that Hispanics are going to be Democrats, which I think is kind of belittling and also racist. They actually stopped doing a lot of voter outreach in predominantly Hispanic areas and in a lot of Hispanic areas because they just were taking it for granted that Hispanics were going to vote for Republicans or Democrats rather, as opposed to Republicans. And they always use this identity-based appeal. So in some of the areas in South Texas where they actually were trying to put some skin in the game, Texas Monthly noted that they kind of fell to their own hubris. They trotted out, they wrote, the sort of bilingual messaging in South Texas that used to play well amongst different communities, Mexican-American communities in Los Angeles and Puerto Rican communities in New York. And they said they were focusing on diversity and immigration, etc. That's not even working out well for Democrats in those areas anymore because people are realizing, wait a minute, I followed all of the proper procedures to be where I am and do what I do. And now you're essentially penalizing me for doing that. Furthermore, a lot of these people in these communities are business owners. They started businesses. And they're realizing the taxation that's coming from this party. And so now understandably, they're incensed. Like, wait a minute, why should we as small business owners, why are you treating us like we're scum just because we're successful small business owners? And they're mad, understandably. Same thing with Hispanic South Texans. And so Republicans have been more persuasive with lower taxation and not locking everybody down, mandating injections, things like that. McAllen, Texas used to be a Democrat stronghold. That's one of my favorite parts of the country, McAllen, Texas. We have KURV, one of our affiliates down there. Well, Sergio is McAllen, Texas. And Clinton had previously won that area by 42 points. And apparently it did not bother Democrats, that major drop from Hillary Clinton winning McAllen in that county by 42 points, dropping to only 17 plus for Biden over Trump. They didn't find that to be alarming. But in June, McAllen elected its first ever Republican mayor. This is devastating to their party. Democrats felt like they owned the Hispanic vote. So while they actually made life more difficult for the demographics that they said that they were going to help, they took them for granted and kind of ignored them, stopped outreach. That was it. You know what always gets me about the left too? And I was talking to a friend of mine who actually works in Republican politics in Texas. And they were telling me about all of the outreach that the Democrat Party in Texas is doing in these like rich white neighborhoods. And I'm like, whoa. Isn't this the party that was saying that the future of not just the state, the Republic of Texas, but the United States was way more diverse and everything except thought, apparently. And yet they haven't been campaigning like that, and they definitely haven't been doing voter outreach that way because they took the Hispanic community totally for granted. And now and apparently they didn't listen to them either, because the Hispanic community, they're no different from anybody else who doesn't want to be locked down, doesn't want to be hit with high taxes. And when they achieve a certain level of success in business, they don't want to be penalized for it.